I'm here tonight on ESPN2. We've got Michael Wilbon, Dave McMenamin, Rachel Nichols, and Brian Windhorst, who is already working the phones. Let's bring in Michael for your perspective first. Michael, you're the oldest member of the panel. You've seen the most amount of basketball. This is a seminal move in the league. What do you make of it?
Well, part of it is the wow factor, LeBron arriving in Los Angeles, the decision being the decision
right.
being announced. But then another part of it, and Stephen A. Smith referred to this earlier, and I thought of this being of a certain age, this is what the Lakers do. Nobody should be stunned about it, whether it's, having George Mikan, and of course there was no decision back then. It was almost like a reserve clause, but down through the years with getting Wilt, away from the Philadelphia franchise. And then, getting Shaq and Kobe some years later. One in a draft night trade, another in a huge sign-in trade that Jerry West and Mitch Kupchak, coordinated. So this is what the Lakers have done historically. Oh, I forgot, a guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, getting him in a big deal from the Milwaukee Bucks just after he'd won a championship with Oscar Robertson in Milwaukee. So historically, while everybody wants to think that these things are new and only on their watch, this is what the Lakers do. And I, knowing, having worked with Magic Johnson for many years at this network, I know that Magic is so keenly aware. He was part of those teams. Seems like all of them. No, he wasn't part of the Wilt teams. He was part of it subsequently, whether it was Kareem or Shaq and Kobe, whether it was playing or being involved in management. And so I think that every time this happens with the Lakers, it energizes the league in a certain way. I'm sure there are some teams out there that are jealous, that are saying, wait a minute, we don't have the resources to do this, maybe smaller market franchises. But this is what the Lakers do historically, and it's going to rev up the league and interest in the league, not just nationally, but globally, with LeBron James being in Southern California.
No question about it. Mike, before I let you go, I've got to ask you, I think a lot of people are thinking this. Everybody has the right to have their own opinion. But after you saw what LeBron did, returns, brings the title home, leaves, jilts them twice, whatever adjective you want to use, how should Cleveland fans feel about knowing that Game 4 of the finals, the sweep, we got him, we had him for 11 years, it's all over? How should they feel about this whole experience with the King?
Well, I'm sure there are conflicted feelings. One, you won a championship, which no franchise in Cleveland has been able to do in a million years. But also, this is a homegrown, hometown guy who's been the face of Northeast Ohio now since whatever it was, 2003, maybe before that, probably when he was in high school.
Yeah.
He's been the most important athlete there for that long, and a decade and a half. And so I understand some anger. I hear people say, oh, they have nothing to be angry about in Cleveland. He won a championship. What? As our Scott Van Pelt likes to say, everybody's from somewhere.
Right.
And if you're from Northeast Ohio, you're angry or you're depressed, you're sad. There's some emotional attachment to what you had that you don't have anymore. Anybody who's been in Cleveland, and I spent a lot of days and evenings in Cleveland since 2003 when LeBron arrived. Cleveland mattered. That's what happens with sports now. We attach a certain significance to any place and the stars and the great teams and the championship teams which reside there. Cleveland no longer has that. So there's going to be an emptiness. The streets aren't going to be as full. People aren't going to walk with the same pep in their step. And maybe I'm more aware of that being a son of the Midwest, even though Chicago and not Cleveland. So I think I understand to some degree how people in Cleveland feel. And there's going to be conflicted feelings. A lot of people are going to say, hey, we got one. We had him for whatever the total number of years was, 11. And that's a great thing. But the caravan moves on, and it moves on to a place that is more accustomed to having it for longer, Southern California.
No question about it. Can't wait till the NBA schedule makers come out. I have a feeling, just a hunch, Christmas Day, ABC, Lakers at Cavs. Just throwing it out if Adam Silver is listening. I don't think that's a pretty safe bet to make at this particular point. That's our Michael Wilbon adding his great perspective tonight. Adding the perspective of the great Kobe Bryant. Of course, when you talk about all the Laker greats that LeBron is joining, this guy's right at the top of the list. Welcome to the family, King James. Lakers for life. Strive for greatness. At Jeannie Buss, the matriarch that made it happen, the woman that hired Magic Johnson. And RP is Rob Pelinka, who is the Lakers general manager. Let's bring in Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A., I want to start with one thing. You have inside information on what happened a minute after midnight in the East, a minute after 9 in the West, between LeBron and Magic last night. Take us through the whole thing.
Well, 12 p.m., 12 a.m., I'm sorry, was obviously where free agency started. That's 9 p.m. Pacific. And at 9:01, Magic Johnson was at LeBron James' front doorstep at his new home. LeBron James had flown in before going on vacation to Italy. He had flown into L.A. specifically to meet with Magic Johnson, and Magic Johnson was there at 9:01. They spent about 3 hours there together talking about everything and, just in terms of their relationship, what the goals were for the Los Angeles Lakers. Magic Johnson gave him a blueprint of the vision that he had, not just for the Lakers franchise, but for LeBron James as a whole in Tinseltown in L.A. LeBron James made sure that, he expressed his desire to be with Magic Johnson and the Los Angeles Lakers for all the years they had known each other, spanning 16 years. Last night at 9:01 Pacific time, they had never sat one-on-one together until last night. That is the first time that LeBron James and Magic Johnson had ever sat and conversed with one another one-on-one in the LeBron James' entire NBA career. So obviously Magic Johnson made his pitch. It didn't have to be that big of a pitch because LeBron James had known for weeks, if not months, that he wanted to be there. And ultimately the deal was inked. It's a 4-year deal, $154 million. Originally, I was told that it was 4 years. Fully guaranteed. Obviously, there was no out. Now I'm hearing that it was a rush job, but LeBron James will go back into his representation, will go back to the table and ask for an out after 3 years. But it's going to be a 4-year deal for $154 million. The Los Angeles Lakers.
Fascinating insight from our Stephen A. literally taking us inside the room where Magic spun his magic to LeBron. I know we had spoken earlier, just for our viewers that are joining us tonight late on this Sunday, wherever you're watching us, you have some information on Kawhi Leonard as well and how he might or might not fit into this Lakers mix. Tell us about that.
Well, the Lakers have already been on the phone with R.C. Buford 2 times, general manager for the San Antonio Spurs, twice today, and I was told that a third time was possible this evening. What you have is a situation where the Lakers want Kawhi Leonard. They know that Kawhi Leonard wants to come to Los Angeles because Kawhi Leonard, through his people, have made it very, very clear he wants to be a Los Angeles Laker, and he wants to be a Los Angeles Laker now. The Lakers have made it very clear they're not willing to give up the farm. The San Antonio Spurs have made it very clear they're asking for the farm. What the San Antonio Spurs want, they want Kuzma, they want Ingram, they want about 3 picks, etc. And the Los Angeles Lakers have said, hell no. They're not giving up Kuzma. He's untouchable. They're not giving up that many picks. Anything else, it has to be, it just has to be the right deal. Now, in the case of the Los Angeles Lakers, their belief is they have some leverage because they can stand pat since LeBron James has signed beyond 1 year. They can stand pat and simply wait until Kawhi Leonard is a free agent next summer and he comes to Los Angeles because that's where he wants to be. Plus, because Kawhi Leonard has made his intentions clear, anybody else that gets involved with trade talk for Kawhi Leonard has essentially been pigeonholed because you're getting a player for a 1-year rental. That's obviously something that San Antonio would prefer not, a position they would prefer not to be in. Nevertheless, that's the situation right now. Plus, I had a couple of executives inform me that do not rule out the possibility of Kawhi Leonard sitting out this upcoming season.
Wow.
Do I believe he would do that? No. But because he only played 9 games last year, because he was so offended by the players coming in San Antonio coming to him and questioning whether or not, or the legitimacy of his injury, rather, he was so offended by that, he could potentially give indications, rather, that, you know what, if you don't want to move me to L.A. now, the hell with it. I'm not coming back to San Antonio under any circumstances. So all of those things put the San Antonio Spurs in a very precarious position, and they're going to have to figure out how to act accordingly. But I'm told that the Los Angeles Lakers will probably give it till Monday or Tuesday at the latest, and then after that, they'll just prepare themselves to move on.
Very interesting. Now, I got a piece of breaking news here, Stephen. What I'm going to tell you here is going to, I think, create a million memes, if not more. And I think we know the image we're talking about. We are reporting now, Stephen A., that Lance Stevenson has agreed to a deal to join the Lakers and now team up with LeBron James. What do you think about that?
Well, that's hilarious, number one.
It is, right?
Number two, chances are he won't be blowing in LeBron James' ear this time. And if he was, LeBron James wouldn't mind. So it's one of those situations. Lance Stevenson is a guy that has excelled in Indiana, but nowhere else. but he's never played with the likes of LeBron James. So it's going to be real interesting to see him, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, along with the rest of the crew that they have. Obviously, they're building something in Los Angeles, but it all gets ignited by LeBron James because you're going to see a lot of people willing to come there now.
No question about it. LeBron will bring people to the table, particularly those that want to be in championship form. Stephen A., hang tight. We're going to bring back in Michael Wilbon because this Lance Stephenson story is just, frankly, too juicy and too hilarious in the words of Stephen A. Okay, so we obviously know the history. Stephen A. mentioned it, the blown in the ear, all that stuff. So what do you make of it? Lance and LeBron together in Lakerland.
I jokingly suggested it on PTI last week.
Oh.
Very jokingly. But, you know, there was a reason. We've seen this before. Again, let's not act like everything is so new. This will be a hilarious pairing.
Yes.
Predictable in this way. We've seen this with Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
The notion that Dennis Rodman, who the Bulls absolutely found to be loathsome on every level, when he was beating them and then lost to them once, but beat them 3 times when the Detroit Bulls rivalry was just, you know, in full flower, the notion that Dennis Rodman could join Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan after physical fights they had in the playoffs and play with them and try to win a championship, people just couldn't accept that. And, of course, it happened. And he played and he won 3 championship rings with those 2. So Lance Stephenson going to Los Angeles to play with LeBron, you know, what do? You co-opt the person who annoys you the most. And I'm sure that Lance Stephenson, while not having a lot of team success against LeBron James, has certainly annoyed him the most. How do you take that out of play? Make him join you.
No question. Stephen, hey, back to you. So let's just say the Kawhi thing doesn't happen by the Monday, Tuesday deadline that you mentioned. Clearly, the Lakers are not going to go into this season currently constituted the way they stand right now on this Sunday, July 1st. Stephen A., we give you the GM hat. I'll make you Magic and Pelinka. What's the next thing they should do?
Well, me personally, I can make a call to DeMarcus Cousins' representatives to see if I can get him on the cheap. He had an Achilles injury. He's out. New Orleans looked better without him. Yes, he is looking to get paid, but he's also looking to position himself to be in a winning situation where he can ultimately capitalize off of it. And certainly he has the potential to be able to do something like that if he were in L.A. And right now he's vulnerable financially. You might be able to get him on the cheap. That's number one. Number two, I'm on the phone trying to get Kemba Walker. I'm on the phone with Mitch Kupchak, a guy that I let go of, no doubt about it. If I'm the Lakers organization, you're going to be hesitant to do business with them, but I go after Kemba Walker because I got news to you. This notion that you got to get another max player or you got to get the likes of Kawhi Leonard. You can't assume that the San Antonio Spurs are going to cave. Do I think they're going to have to? Yes, only because Kawhi Leonard is in the last year of his deal, and he's already made it clear to everybody and their grandma that he wants to be in Los Angeles. So because of that, that puts you in a very compromising situation that he's determined to be in L.A. because he'd be a one-year rental for anybody else. The flip side to it is that if you go out there and you get a Kemba Walker or somebody else, I think that can work for the Lakers.
Now, it's very interesting Stephen A. says that because, Michael, I want to go back to you. Everybody's saying, you know, go after Cousins, Stephen A. putting out Kemba Walker's name, whether Kawhi will work out or not. When we were talking earlier this evening, Michael, you essentially said, hey, the way the Lakers are currently constituted, as long as old number 23 is on that roster, I'm totally okay with that. What do you make of what they might be able to do right here in the here and now with the way they look today?
Well, when I said I'm okay with it, it's a better team than LeBron was dragging behind him in Cleveland during the NBA Finals or the entire playoffs. I don't think that team can challenge, obviously, Golden State and probably can't even yet challenge Houston. But let's go back to the Boogie Cousins suggestion because that was the first name I thought of tonight as well for the fact that, yes, you know, you can probably get him coming off of this Achilles injury. You don't know how long that would take. Maybe he's going to be out until the All-Star break. Who knows? Maybe there's a one-year deal to be had with Boogie Cousins proving a different level of value. And he's never won anywhere. He's never had a chance like this to win, to be a part of a winning environment, to play with a player like LeBron James. Maybe, and I don't know the answer to this, but maybe that affects Boogie Cousins' thinking as to what his next step, what his next chapters are in the NBA. Instead of playing on a max, super max level for a bad franchise, how about joining the Lakers with LeBron James and all the other assets they have around them and giving that a shot? It doesn't have to be a long-term contract if he's going to bet on himself. I know these are big ifs, but when you're the Lakers right now, you've got a lot of leverage because you've got LeBron James and you got Magic Johnson thinking and planning and making those phone calls.
No question about it. The emergence of DeMarcus Cousins coming clearly because Paul George has opted to stay in Oklahoma City to the tune of 4 years and $137 million. Great to have the perspective of Michael Wilbon and, of course, Stephen A. Smith tonight here on SportsCenter. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We're going to check in with our Rachel Nichols now. Again, it's the story of the moment. It's not stealing the thunder of LeBron to L.A., Rachel, but the Stevenson and James connection again, this time not as combatants, but as teammates. What do you think about this?
It's so funny hearing Michael Wilbon talk about Dennis Rodman, and he would be the first one to tell you Lance Stevenson is not Dennis Rodman. So it's a little bit different. I am surprised, as everyone else. I can't wait to see the show, like everyone else. I am thrilled that the Jump films just about 100 yards from Staples Center. This is going to be great. I mean, we will see all. I mean, the Western Conference in the NBA, and really the whole NBA. Think about the Celtics-Lakers rivalry right now, Zubin. Right? We have revived Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, and the rest of the Celtics that we saw shine so much through the Eastern Conference playoffs against LeBron James, the guy he left behind in Cleveland, who is now going to be a Laker, and whoever else ends up joining them. And then, of course, the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets watching them all saying, wait a minute, we're going to challenge the Warriors. Get out of there, Houston. And then it turned out, of course, it went very differently than people in Oklahoma City expected this season. They now have some revived hope with Paul George signing, not just re-signing there, but signing a longer-term deal there than a lot of people expected, planting his flag firmly that he is there to say he wants to see him and Russ build something. They expect to be challengers. I know he's not a household name with a lot of people, but Andre Roberson getting hurt on that team last year was a huge impact for them. And if he can stay healthy, Russ and PG can stay healthy. We'll see what happens with Carmelo Anthony. They could be a challenge. Houston, of course, you heard Chris Paul saying, run it back. We're going to run it back. We'll have to see if they can do that. They still have Clint Capella's contract floating out there. We'll have to see what happens there. And they did lose Trevor Ariza, which is going to hurt them. Trevor signed with the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul, obviously, also a year older. I like to say you never actually run it back in the NBA because everybody has aged a year. We'll have to see how that affects him with injuries. And then, of course, the Golden State Warriors. Look, I mean, there's a point where you feel like, boy, they could only beat themselves with the collection of talent they have, the All-Stars they have, the MVPs they had. Well, we saw them falter at times this past season. Certainly during the regular season, at times during the playoffs, they seem to be beating themselves, and that's no knock against the teams they were playing at the time, but they were playing very sloppy, un-Warriors-like basketball. Steve Kerr has been very open about the fact that it's gotten harder every year. Steve Kerr expects next year to be harder than this last year, and he will tell you this last year was hard. It is fascinating. And, oh, by the way, now let's bring in LeBron James.
How about that? Steve Kerr just got himself a brand new contract, and as we've been talking about for the better part of 2 hours, LeBron's got a new contract himself, which he'll put pen to paper on July 6th. That's our Rachel Nichols. Terrific NBA insight as